Adapted from Ichiro Oda's manga, the Fishman Island saga aired in the anime from 2011 to 2012 in Japan and spans a total of 57 episodes. Return to Sabaody. 2 years after the Straw Hats separated, Luffy finally retrieves his straw hat and prepares to leave Ruskaina with Hancock and the Kuja pirates. He has clearly grown stronger, even befriending the island's dangerous animals. Hancock is still hopelessly in love with him, but Luffy casually rejects the idea of marriage and sets off for Sabaody Archipelago. Meanwhile, Sabaody has become chaotic. The Marines have shifted their base, Brook has become a superstar known as Soul King, and rumors spread that the Straw Hat Pirates have returned and are recruiting new members. Sanji arrives with the Okama and immediately celebrates seeing real women again. Yo, this man's gonna end up in the bin. At a bar, Nami runs into a group pretending to be the Straw Hats. These fake pirates, led by fake Luffy, are recruiting criminals and threatening people. When they try to intimidate Nami, Usopp appears and saves her with one of his new moves. The two reunite and escape while the fakes vow revenge. At the bar, Sanji learns that several crew members have already arrived. Frankie has been guarding the Thousand Sunny, which is now coded for the trip underwater. Robin arrives at the ship and sees Frankie's heavily upgraded body. Chopper, meanwhile, accidentally follows more fake Straw Hats, believing that they are Zoro, Sanji, Robin, and even himself. When fake Robin is kidnapped by government agents, Chopper panics, not realizing that she's just an imposter. The Marines then hear about the Straw Hats' return and send forces to Sabaody, including Sentomaru and 2 pacifistas. Luffy, disguised under a hood, accidentally runs into fake Luffy. When fake Luffy threatens him, Luffy calmly ignores him, dodges a point-blank shot, and knocks out the crew with his haki. Elsewhere, Sanji discovers that Zoro accidentally boarded the wrong ship, which he then cut in half after it submerged. The fake crew then gathers their recruits, including dangerous pirates like Caribou and Korobu. But the situation collapses when the Marines arrive. Fake Luffy is exposed as Damaro Black, a weak pirate pretending to be Luffy. Sentomaru realizes the real Luffy is nearby, and when a pacifista attacks, Luffy defeats it in one Gear 2 hockey-powered shot. Zoro and Sanji arrive and instantly destroy another pacifista, proving how much stronger the trio has become. Before leaving, Luffy shouts to Rayleigh, thanking him and declaring that he will become Pirate King. Rayleigh, emotional, holds back the Marines while Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji escape. Perona briefly helps them too, warning them about the Marine ships. Finally, the Straw Hats reunite aboard the Thousand Sunny. Brook returns, Hancock blocks the Marines, and allies from each crew member's training journey help delay their pursuit. Frankie then activates the coded ship, and Nami explains how underwater sailing works. With that, Luffy thanks everyone for waiting 2 years, and the Straw Hats dive beneath the sea toward Fishman Island and the New World. Fishman Island. After the Straw Hats escape, Caribou and Korobu capture the remaining fake Straw Hats in No Man's Land. Furious that the imposters tricked them, Caribou reveals his Logia-type swamp powers and orders the fakes buried alive. Meanwhile, Sentomaru reports that Damaro Black and most of the fake recruits were captured, but the real Straw Hats have returned much stronger, easily destroying 2 pacifistas. Rayleigh watches the sea and remembers meeting Gold D. Roger, noting how much younger Roger resembled Luffy. He believes destiny is taking shape and that Luffy is proven worthy of the Straw Hat. Underwater, the Straw Hats admire the world beneath Sabaody. Nami explains how the ship's coating works and warns that too much damage could pop the bubble. Frankie then reveals what happened during the crew's absence. Hachan and Duval protected the Thousand Sunny until they were injured, and after that, Bartholomew Kuma guarded the ship for almost 2 years. Kuma, before losing his personality completely to the government's modifications, asked Vegapunk to program him to protect the Sunny until the Straw Hats returned. The crew then realizes they owe Kuma deeply, even though the next time they meet him, he may no longer be himself. As the Sunny descends, the Caribou pirates chase them, planning to kill the Straw Hats and gain fame. Their ship is then pulled by Momu, the sea cow from Arlong Park. But when Momu recognizes Sanji, Luffy, and Nami, he panics and flees, accidentally leaving only Caribou on the Sunny. Caribou pretends to surrender, but secretly plans to kill the crew one by one. However, Frankie eventually traps him inside a reinforced barrel. The crew then continues downward, but the route becomes dangerous. They encounter the downward plume and a massive kraken. Luffy, excited instead of afraid, decides to tame it, and Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji fight outside the ship using coating bubbles, showing off new abilities. Sanji's blue walk, Zoro's upgraded swordsmanship, and Luffy's armament hockey powered elephant gun. The kraken is defeated, but the monster trio gets separated from the Sunny. The remaining crew then enters the dark deep sea, surrounded by terrifying creatures. They encounter a volcanic region, a giant anglerfish, the sea giant Watasumi, and the legendary ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman. Brook explains the cursed legend of Vanderdecken, but the current Decken commands Watasumi to destroy the Sunny. Suddenly, the Kraken returns, now tamed by Luffy. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji then reunite with the ship just as an undersea volcano erupts, and the Sea King helps them escape, but falling rocks knock him out, sending the Sunny plummeting into the abyss. The Straw Hats survive and finally reach Fishman Island, a glowing island inside a giant bubble. Before entering, they are confronted by the new Fishman pirates, who give them two choices: join or be sunk. Luffy rejects them, and Frankie uses Coup de Burst to force their way inside. The ship's coasting bursts, scattering the crew. Luffy wakes up in Kami's house with Sanji, Chopper, and Usopp. Kami then introduced them to her mermaid friend and explains that Hachan is still recovering from injuries he suffered protecting the Sunny. In Mermaid Cove, Sanji is overwhelmed by the sight of mermaids and believes that he has found his all blue. Yo, this man is actually a clown. Like, no wonder they changed this man's character in the live action. The royal princess arrive looking for Straw Hats, but not to arrest them. They actually carry a message from Jinbei. However, Sanji suffers a life-threatening nosebleed, and the situation reveals a harsh island law. Fishmen and merfolk are forbidden from sharing blood with humans. Hammond explains that this resentment is tied to Fisher Tiger, who died after humans refused to donate blood. Luffy defeats Hammond and his beast using Haki, then escapes with Kami to find human blood donors for Sanji. At the Mermaid Cafe, Sanji is saved by two Okama donors, where a terrifying vision is shared with them about a man in a straw hat who will destroy Fishman Island. Meanwhile, unrest builds. Hody Jones, leader of the new Fishman pirates, takes energy steroids and brutally attacks fleeing pirates to prove Fishman's superiority. Caribou escapes his barrel and begins kidnapping mermaids to sell into slavery. King Neptune then invites Luffy's group to the palace as a thanks for saving the pet shark of the princess, Shirahoshi. At the palace, Luffy wanders into the hard-shell tower and meets Shirahoshi, a giant mermaid princess who has been locked away for 10 years because of another enemy named Vanderdecken the Ninth, whose Mato power lets him target her from anywhere. When Decken throws an axe at her, Luffy saves her and offers to take her outside to the sea forest. At the same time, Hody and Decken form an alliance to overthrow the kingdom. The Straw Hats inside the palace end up fighting Neptune's guards after being falsely accused of kidnapping mermaids. Hody then invades the palace, reveals his hatred of humans, and floods the building. Zoro battles him underwater and wounds him badly, but Hody recovers with energy steroids and captures Neptune, Zoro, Usopp, and Brook. Luffy then escapes the palace with Shirahoshi hidden in Megalo's mouth and heads to the sea forest, where Shirahoshi visits her mother, Queen Otohime's grave for the first time. At the sea forest, Jinbei reunites with Luffy and reveals the painful history behind Fishman Island's hatred. Queen Otohime fought for peace with humans, where in contrast, Fisher Tiger had once freed the slaves from Mary Joie, but after being betrayed, formed the Sun Pirates. Tiger hated human cruelty, but refused to kill humans, hoping not to pass hatred to the next generation. His death triggers Arlong's hatred, Jinbei becoming a warlord, and Otohime's assassination, which all shaped the island's trauma. Jinbei reveals he released Arlong into East Blue and apologizes to Nami, but she forgives him, saying Arlong alone is responsible for what he did to her village. Meanwhile, Hody then broadcasts his coup, declaring himself the new king and threatening to execute Neptune in 3 hours. He also reveals he plans to kill everyone who supported Otohime's dream, and Jinbei tries to stop Luffy from fighting because a human defeating Hody could worsen racial tensions between the fishmen and humans. But after clashing briefly, they form a plan. At the plaza, Hody reveals he murdered Otohime himself and framed a human for it. Shirahoshi admits she always knew, but stayed silent because her mother asked her not to hold hatred. Just as Hody prepares to execute Neptune, Luffy bursts in and kicks him away. The Straw Hats arrive in full force. Luffy knocks out 50,000 enemies with Conqueror's Haki, and the crew shows off what they've learned over the past 2 years in an epic battle, defeating Hody's officers while Luffy battles Hody himself. But Vanderdecken throws a massive arc Noah at Shirahoshi, threatening to crush Fishman Island. Hody betrays Decken, wounds him, and tries to ensure Noah falls. Luffy then defeats Hody with Red Hawk and Elephant Gun, then desperately tries to destroy Noah before it hits the island. Shirahoshi's hidden power awakens, summoning Sea Kings who stop Noah's fall. With the island saved, Luffy collapses from blood loss. The old blood taboo is finally broken when Jinbei donates blood to save Luffy. Upon waking, Luffy asks Jinbei to join his crew, but he declines for now, saying he has unfinished business to attend to, but promises to join later if Luffy still wants him. The island then celebrates with a banquet. Robin then learns from Neptune that Shirahoshi is the ancient weapon Poseidon, the mermaid princess who can command Sea Kings, and that a historical figure named Joy Boy once made a promise involving Noah. Caribou overhears this secret, but is defeated before kidnapping Shirahoshi. The Straw Hats also clash indirectly with Big Mom after Luffy eats the candy meant as Fishman Island's tribute. Luffy challenges Big Mom over Denden Mushi, declaring he will defeat her and make Fishman Island his territory instead. Finally, the crew prepares to leave, and Shirahoshi tearfully asks Luffy to take her outside someday, and the Straw Hats make a pinky promise to return. With Fishman Island beginning to heal and trust humans again, the Straw Hats sail upward toward the new world, the Dressrosa Saga. Dressrosa aired in the One Piece anime from 2013 to 2016 in Japan and spans a total of 171 episodes. Punk Hazard. After leaving Fishman Island, the Straw Hats finally entered the new world. Their calm trip quickly turns chaotic when Luffy's fishing attracts a massive eel, which drags the Thousand Sunny into an underwater maelstrom called the White Strong. The crew survives and rises to the surface with the help of island whales, thrilling Brook because they remind him of Laboon. Once above the water, they spot a fiery island ahead, even though none of the log pose needles point there. Luffy wants to investigate it. Then, a distress call comes through the Denden Mushi from someone on Punk Hazard, claiming his group is being attacked by a samurai. Despite Robin warning that it could be a trap, Luffy insists they go. Luffy, Zoro, Robin, and Usopp travel across the burning sea on the Mini Mary 2 and reach Punk Hazard, an island sealed off by the world government after a disaster happened 4 years earlier. They cut through the gate and discover a ruined former government facility. The island is strangely split between fire and ice, and the group soon encounters a dragon. After a brief fight, Zoro decapitates it and they discover a pair of talking human legs stuck under its head. Luffy naturally asks the legs to join the crew. What? Yo, look, how is Luffy so gullible yet so strong? Bro. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats left on the Sunny are knocked unconscious by gas and kidnapped except for Brook. Sanji, Nami, Chopper, and Frankie wake up inside a facility on Punk Hazard with a severed samurai head. They reassemble him and learn that he is searching for his son, Momonosuke. When they break out, they find a room full of giant children begging to be rescued. Nami, moved by their tears, refuses to abandon them, while Sanji and Frankie stay behind to fight hazmat-suited men. The island's mysteries deepen as Luffy's group crosses into the frozen side and encounters centaurs, including Brownbeard. Smoker and the G5 Marines also arrive, suspicious of the distress call. Outside the facility, they meet Trafalgar Law, who's now become a warlord of the sea. Smoker demands answers, but Law blocks him. When the escaping Straw Hats and children burst out, Law reveals his power by cutting apart the Marine ship, defeating Tashigi, stealing Smoker's heart, and swapping several people's minds and bodies, including Sanji, Nami, Frankie, and Chopper. The Straw Hats regroup and learn more about Punk Hazard. Brownbeard then explains that Caesar Clown, a former colleague of Vegapunk, supposedly saved the island's paralyzed prisoners after the chemical accident. But Smoker reveals the truth. Caesar caused the disaster himself while researching mass murder weapons. Chopper then discovers the children are being drugged with addictive candy containing NHC-10, and are being experimented on to become giants. Meanwhile, Caesar is exposed as the true villain, working under Joker, who is later revealed to be Don Quixote do Flamingo. Law forms an alliance with Luffy, revealing a plan to shake the New World by targeting one of the 4 emperors. Luffy accepts immediately after hearing the target is Kaido. Law's plan then requires kidnapping Caesar and destroying Sad, the substance used to create artificial Zoan devil fruits called Smiles. Caesar responds by releasing Smiley, a living poison weapon made from the gas that ruined Punk Hazard in the first place. Smiley eats a giant candy and transforms into Shinokuni, a deadly petrifying gas that begins swallowing the island. The counterattack begins once Law frees himself from Caesar's trap. The Straw Hats, G5 Marines, Smoker, and Law temporarily cooperate to escape the gas and stop Caesar. Luffy then goes after Caesar, and Smoker confronts Virgo while the others rescue the children. Monet, Caesar's Harpy assistant and Doflamingo's spy, delays Luffy and later fights Zoro and Tashigi. Zoro terrifies her with his killing intent, and Tashigi finishes her off. Elsewhere, Luffy meets Momonosuke, now transformed into a small dragon after eating an artificial devil fruit. Momonosuke reveals Caesar's experiments will eventually kill all the children, which pisses Luffy the hell off. Mocha then bravely swallows all the poison candy to stop the other children from eating it, nearly dying in the process, but Chopper and the Marines rush to save her. In the Sad Room, Law defeats Virgo by slicing him and the entire room apart, declaring that he has broken the gears of the New World. At the same time, Luffy finally defeats Caesar, sending him flying out of the facility in front of the watching underworld brokers. After this, Baby 5 and Buffalo arrive to retrieve Caesar, but Frankie, Nami, Usopp, and Law stop them. Caesar is ultimately captured, completing the first step of Law's plan. Afterward, the Marines and pirates hold an uneasy ceasefire. The children are handed over to Tashigi and the G5 Marines so they can be cured, while Brownbeard turns himself in to receive treatment. The Straw Hats share food with the children, Marines, and Caesar's former subordinates before leaving Punk Hazard. Law then contacts Doflamingo, revealing he has Caesar and demanding that Doflamingo resign from the 7 warlords by the next morning. Doflamingo rushes to Punk Hazard and nearly kills Smoker for refusing to reveal where Law and the Straw Hats went, but Kuzan, the former admiral known as Aokiji, arrives and saves him. Out at sea, the Straw Hats learn they are heading to Dressrosa to destroy the Smile Factory and weaken Kaido. The next morning, the newspaper confirms Doflamingo has resigned as warlord and king of Dressrosa, while also revealing Luffy and Law's alliance to the rest of the world. Dressrosa. After Doflamingo's fake resignation from the 7 warlords, the world is thrown into confusion. His underground business connections begin shaking, and Marine headquarters debates the danger of Luffy and Law's new alliance, and Sakazuki sends the new admiral Fujitora to deal with them. Law arranges to return Caesar Clown to Doflamingo at 3 p.m. on Greenbit, but the real plan is to destroy Dressrosa's Smile Factory. Meanwhile, Doflamingo prepares his own trap by offering Ace's Flame Fruit as a prize in the Corrida Coliseum, knowing Luffy couldn't ignore it. The Straw Hats arrive at Dressrosa, a lively country where humans live alongside walking toys. The crew then splits into teams. Law, Usopp, and Robin take Caesar to Greenbit. Nami, Chopper, Brook, and Momonosuke guard the Sunny, and Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Frankie, and Kinemon enter town to find the Smile Factory and rescue Kinemon's captured friend, Kanjuro. In town, they see a blind man being cheated at roulette by Doflamingo's men. Luffy exposes the scam, but the blind man uses a crushing gravity power to defeat the thugs, later revealed to be Admiral Fujitora. Zoro's sword, Shusui, is stolen by a fairy, so he chases after it with Sanji and Kinemon following. Luffy wants to chase too, but Frankie stops him so that they can gather more intel. They learn the Coliseum is holding a tournament for the Flame Fruit, and Luffy immediately decides to enter under the fake name Lucy.
What?
Bruh, this man's fake name is way too close to his real name. Okay, anyways, he's Joy Boy. Inside, he meets fighters from around the world. One of them, named Rebecca, reveals that she wants to win the fruit and defeat Doflamingo. The tournament then begins, with Burgess quickly winning A block and Bartolomeu winning B block, using his barrier fruit. Meanwhile, Law's team heads to Greenbit and discovers CP0 in Dressrosa, a sign that something major is happening. Sanji is then lured by a beautiful woman named Violet, who turns out to be a Don Quixote assassin. But Sanji senses she is hiding pain and refuses to believe she's truly evil. Violet, moved by his trust, betrays Doflamingo and reveals the truth. Doflamingo never actually resigned. The news was faked using his world noble connections. Sanji warns Law, but Doflamingo and Fujitora have already confronted him on Greenbit. Law refuses to hand Caesar over, admits the Straw Hats are his allies, and loses his warlord title. Fujitora then summons a meteor, beginning a three-way clash between Law, Doflamingo, and Fujitora. Elsewhere, Robin and Usopp are captured by a tribe of dwarves living beneath Greenbit. Usopp lies and claims that he is a descendant of Mont Blanc Noland, their hero, which accidentally makes him central to their rebellion. The dwarves reveal that Doflamingo enslaved their people inside the Smile Factory, and that Sugar, one of Doflamingo's officers, has been turning humans into toys with her devil fruit. Once turned into toys, people are forgotten by everyone else who knew them. Frankie then meets the one-legged toy Thunder Soldier, who also wants to destroy the Smile Factory. He reveals Dressrosa's horrifying secret. All the living toys were once humans. Doflamingo used Sugar's powers to erase political enemies, criminals, rebels, and innocent people from memory. Thunder Soldier is later revealed to be Kyros, the legendary gladiator and Rebecca's father. 10 years earlier, Doflamingo flamed King Riku by controlling him and his soldiers, making them attack their own citizens. Then Doflamingo pretended to save the country and took the throne himself. Kyros was then transformed into a toy by Sugar and forgotten by his wife Scarlet and daughter Rebecca, and forced to raise Rebecca as a toy soldier after Scarlet was killed by Diamante. Meanwhile, back in the Coliseum, Luffy wins C Block after clashing with Don Chinjao, who hates Luffy's grandfather Garp for flattening his drill-shaped head decades earlier and preventing him from accessing his treasure. Luffy restores Chinjao's head during their fight and defeats him, earning Chinjao's gratitude. Rebecca then enters D Block, hated by the crowd because she is King Riku's granddaughter. Another character who's also been there, Cavendish, reveals his sleeping alter ego, Hakuba, and wipes out nearly everyone, but Rebecca survives and wins the block. Meanwhile, as Doflamingo overwhelms Law, the Sunny team is attacked by another one of Doflamingo's crewmates named Giola, who uses art powers to transform them and the ship. Brook tricks her into restoring his cane and violin and then defeats her. Law then escapes with Caesar and reaches the Sunny, where Sanji saves him from Doflamingo. Law tells Nami's group to take Caesar, while he stays behind to hold Doflamingo off. Doflamingo eventually defeats Law and shoots him in front of Luffy, Zoro, and Kinemon, then takes him to the palace. At the Coliseum, Bellamy, who's made a return in this arc, is ordered to kill Luffy, but is betrayed by Doflamingo and attacked by Dellinger. Bartolomeu saves him. Then, in a shocking turn of events, Luffy is reunited with his long-lost brother, thought to be dead, Sabo, who is now second in command of the Revolutionary Army. Sabo takes Luffy's place as Lucy to win the Flame Fruit, while Luffy, Zoro, and Kinemon leave to rescue Law and defeat Doflamingo. Sabo wins the final round, eats Ace's fruit, and uses the Flame Fist, inheriting Ace's will. After this, the Tontata Dwarf tribe launch Operation SOP, knock Sugar unconscious, restore the toys to human form, and expose Doflamingo's crimes. Usopp, Robin, and the dwarves infiltrate the underground port, but Treble and Sugar defeat them. Robin is turned into a toy and Usopp nearly runs away. However, hearing the dwarves still believe in him, he returns and admits he lied, but chooses to become their hero now. Sugar tries to torture him by feeding him the ultra spicy Tata Babasco, but Usopp's horrifying reaction face scares her unconscious. The toys across Dressrosa become human again, the lost memories return, and the country erupts into chaos. As Kyros regains his human form, he immediately goes after Doflamingo, seemingly decapitating him. But it is only a string clone. Doflamingo activates the birdcage surrounding Dressrosa with deadly strings, cutting off communication and trapping everyone inside. He announces a twisted survival game: kill him or capture his enemies for rewards. He places bounties on Luffy, Law, Zoro, Usopp, Robin, Kinemon, Sabo, Kyros, Rebecca, Viola, and King Riku, with Usopp receiving the highest bounty in the game.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Pika then rearranges the island, raising the palace and Smile Factory above the ground. Luffy, Zoro, Law, and the freed Coliseum fighters begin racing toward the palace. The gladiators from earlier slowly become allies, clearing a path for Luffy, while Zoro stays behind to fight Pika, whose stone powers allow him to merge with the island's structures. Frankie battles Senor Pink at the Smile Factory, while the dwarves free their enslaved comrades. Sabo then blocks Fujitora and the Marines to protect Luffy. As battles erupt across Dressrosa, the dwarves then destroy the Smile Factory, crippling Doflamingo's operation. On the palace roof, Law confronts Doflamingo and reveals the reason for his hatred. As a child, Law survived the destruction of Flevance, a country poisoned by amber lead and erased by the world government. Terminally ill and full of hatred, he joined the Don Quixote pirates. Doflamingo's younger brother, Corazon, secretly a marine, took pity on Law and tried to save him. Corazon, whose real name was Don Quixote Rocinante, discovered that Law's name was Trafalgar D. Water Law. And due to this, if his older brother or anyone else found out, Trafalgar would be shown no mercy. So, Rocinante stole the op fruit and forced Law to eat it, curing his illness, but was killed by Doflamingo while protecting him. Back in the present, with Law and Doflamingo in the middle of their fight, Doflamingo cuts off his arm and nearly kills him. Luffy is delayed by Bellamy, who refuses to betray Doflamingo despite being discarded by him. Luffy reluctantly defeats Bellamy with one punch, respecting his resolve, then reaches Doflamingo. Law manages to land an attack, rupturing Doflamingo's organs, but Doflamingo stitches himself internally with strings and keeps fighting. Trouble is then defeated by Law, but triggers an explosion, forcing Luffy to carry on alone. Realizing Gear 2 is too weak and Gear 3 is too slow, Luffy activates Gear 4, Bound Men. Gear 4 overwhelms Doflamingo, sending him crashing through Dressrosa. But Doflamingo reveals his awakened Devil Fruit powers, turning buildings into strings. Luffy nearly finishes him, but Gear 4 runs out, leaving him helpless for 10 minutes. The Coliseum fighters, Gats, Law, and Sabo, protect Luffy while Dressrosa's people and even Fujitora push against the shrinking birdcage. Doflamingo tries to force Rebecca to kill Viola, but Law switches Viola with Luffy at the last second. Luffy returns, reactivates Gear 4, breaks through Doflamingo's final attack and defeats him with King Kong Gun. The birdcage then disappears and Dressrosa is finally free. Afterward, Fujitora exposes the truth to the world and kneels before King Riku, apologizing for the world government's role in allowing Dressrosa's suffering. Sabo visits the sleeping Luffy and tells Zoro, Robin, and Frankie how he survived his childhood accident, joined the Revolutionary Army, lost his memories, but then regained them again after hearing news of Ace's death. He leaves Luffy a life card before departing. Now, elsewhere in the world, a humongous monster jumps 10,000 meters down from a sky island and lands right on top of the other Worst Generation members alliance, consisting of Kid, Appu, and Hawkins. This monster being none other than Kaido, who is introduced as one of the 4 emperors known as the strongest creature alive, saying that he's ready to start the biggest war in history and take down the world that he considers being mundane. 3 days later, the Straw Hats prepare to escape as Fujitora is finally ordered to capture them. Luffy detours to Rebecca, helping her reject palace life so she can live with Kyros. The gladiators then help the Straw Hats escape to Orlumbus's ship. 7 groups then pledge themselves to Luffy as his subordinates, but Luffy refuses to command anyone. They choose to serve him anyway and form the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. As Dressrosa begins healing under King Riku, Doflamingo is taken away to Impel Down, warning that his fall will throw the world into chaos. The Straw Hats and Law sail toward Zou aboard Bartolomeu's ship and receive new bounty posters. Everyone's bounty has increased, but Sanji's poster shocks him the most, as he is now wanted only alive. Whole Cake Island Saga aired in the One Piece anime from 2016 to 2019 in Japan and spans a total of 143 episodes. God damn! Zou. After leaving Dressrosa, the Straw Hats sail toward Zou, aboard the Going Luffy Senpai, only to discover that Bartolomeo's crew barely knows how to navigate. Elsewhere, the world reacts to Doflamingo's defeat. The warlord Edward Weevil, claiming to be Whitebeard's son, continues destroying Whitebeard's former subordinate crews under the direction of his mother, Buckin. After hearing Luffy defeated Doflamingo, they decide to go after him for information on Marco the Phoenix. Meanwhile, the Revolutionary Army celebrates victories caused by Doflamingo's fall, but Burgess secretly discovers their base, Baltigo. 1 week later, the Straw Hats reach Zou and realize it is not a normal island, but a civilization built on the back of a massive 1,000-year-old elephant. Kanjuro reveals that Zou is home to the Mink tribe, who are rumored to hate humans. The crew finds the Thousand Sunny docked at the elephant's leg and says goodbye to the Barto Club. Then rides Kanjuro's poorly drawn dragon, Ryunosuke, up the elephant. During the climb, a falling monkey knocks Kinemon and Kanjuro back down, so the rest continue without them. At the top, the Straw Hats and Law explore the island, which is in ruins. They encounter Carrot, a rabbit mink, and Wanda, a canine mink wearing Nami's clothes. This alarms the crew, especially when Wanda mentions the corpse of their crewmate. Luffy, meanwhile, runs into the guardians of the whale forest and Law's crew, including Beepo, who is revealed to be a mink. Wanda stops the fight and explains that Zou was recently destroyed by Jack of the Beast Pirates. The group reaches the Right Belly Fortress, where the Straw Hats are shocked to receive a warm welcome from the Minks. Nami, Chopper, and Brook reunite with them, and the corpse turns out to just be Brook. Bruh. But Nami tearfully reveals that something happened to Sanji. She explains that Sanji's group escaped Big Mom's ship and arrived at Zou after Jack's attack. They found the Minks crucified and poisoned by Caesar's gas weapon. Sanji forced Caesar to clear the poison while Chopper treated the victims, saving the Mink tribe from annihilation. Wanda then recounts Jack's invasion. 17 days earlier, Jack arrived demanding the ninja Raizo. The Minks denied Raizo was there and fought Jack's forces for 5 days and nights. Inuarashi ruled by day and Nekomamushi by night, both matching Jack in battle. But Jack eventually used Caesar's poison gas, leaving the Minks helpless. He tortured Inuarashi, Nekomamushi, and their warriors, then left to rescue Doflamingo. This means Luffy and Law indirectly saved Zou by defeating Doflamingo. The story then shifts to Sanji's disappearance. 2 days earlier, Picoms and Capone arrived on Zou looking for Caesar and Sanji. Picoms, a mink native of Zou, was grateful the Straw Hats saved his people and offered to spare them in exchange for Caesar. Beige, however, shot Picoms for putting emotions over the mission. Beige revealed his castle body powers, captured Caesar and the Straw Hats, and presented Sanji with a wedding invitation. Sanji, third son of the Vinsmoke family, was to marry Charlotte Pudding, Big Mom's daughter. Sanji refused at first, but after Vito whispered a secret to him and Beige threatened the crew, Sanji chose to go. He threw Nami, Chopper, and Brook out of Beige's body, used Caesar as a hostage to protect them, and promised he would return. His note simply said he had to see a woman and would be back soon. In the present, Brook fears Sanji may never return because marrying into Big Mom's family could make him no longer part of the Straw Hats. Zoro warns that they are already targeted by Kaido and should not recklessly provoke Big Mom too, but Luffy decides he'll go save Sanji himself. After this, it's revealed that Sanji's family is the Vinsmoke family, leaders of the military organization Germa 66, a family of assassins, and that makes Sanji a prince. Luffy is unfazed and demands to be taken to the tea party. Law warns that Kaido will likely come for them, but the Minks are touched by his concern and throw a party. The next major twist comes when Kinemon and Kanjuro finally arrive on Zou. The Straw Hats panic because they believe the Minks hate samurai, especially after Jack's torture over Raizo. But when Kinemon asks for Raizo, the Minks kneel and reveal that Raizo has been safe all along. They were allies of the Kozuki family and would rather die than betray him. Kinemon then reveals that Momonosuke is not his son, but the heir of Kozuki Oden, daimyo of Kuri and Wano. They then bow to Momonosuke and agree to a truce. The group is then taken inside the whale-shaped tree where Rizo is chained near a red poneglyph. Robin translates it and learns it's a road poneglyph, one of 4 stones that reveal the route to Laugh-Tale. The other known road poneglyphs are held by Big Mom and Kaido. The rulers reveal the Kozuki family created the poneglyphs 800 years ago, and Odin could read them. Odin sailed with Roger, learned a secret about Laugh-Tale, and was executed by Kaido and Wano's shogun while protecting Momonosuke and his retainers. Kinemon asks Luffy and Law to help defeat Kaido and open Wano's borders. Luffy refuses to accept, but when Momonosuke tearfully declares that he wants to avenge his parents and defeat Kaido, Luffy finally agrees. The Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance is then formed, but Luffy insists that rescuing Sanji comes first. Jack suddenly returns and attacks, planning to kill the elephant instead of invading Zou again. Luffy and Momonosuke hear the elephant's voice, but only Momonosuke can command it. The elephant reveals it has been sentenced to walk the seas forever and can only fight when ordered. So Momonosuke tells the elephant to attack, and the elephant destroys Jack's entire fleet with one swing of its trunk. Jack, however, survives underwater, but his fleet is gone. Afterwards, the alliance splits. Momonosuke stays on Zou to communicate with the elephant, while Nekomamushi plans to find Marco for help against Kaido. Luffy forms the Sanji retrieval team, and Usopp gives Nami an upgraded sorcery climb attack, though she avoids paying him properly. After they leave, Luffy grabs the team and jumps off the elephant. Elsewhere, world leaders prepare for the Leveille, including Vivi and King Cobra, Dalton and Koreha, King Riku and Rebecca, and Neptune's family with Shirahoshi. At sea, Carrot secretly joins Luffy's group, thrilled to see the outside world. The team then reads shocking news. Baltigo, the Revolutionary Army's base, has been destroyed by Blackbeard. Luffy worries about Sabo, but Pedro notes the paper would have said if Dragon or Sabo had been captured or killed. Meanwhile, Kaido rages drunkenly after hearing Jack failed and that his smile supply is ruined, while Kid sits defeated nearby. Whole Cake Island. After being taken to Totoland, Sanji refuses to accept his forced wedding situation, but Vito shows him a picture of Charlotte Pudding, and Sanji is instantly smitten. Vito also reveals his admiration for Germa 66, who are known as villains in the comic Sora, Warrior of the Sea. Meanwhile, the Sanji retrieval team enters Big Mom's territory, but quickly runs into trouble when Luffy eats a poisonous fish and nearly dies. Yo, Luffy, what are you doing, bro? They are saved by Sanji's sister, Reiju, who uses her poison abilities to remove the toxin from Luffy. Reiju and Yonju explained that Sanji's updated Only Alive bounty allowed the Vinsmokes to locate him for the arranged marriage. The team later reaches Cacao Island, where Luffy and Chopper are amazed that everything is made of chocolate. After they eat part of a building, its owner, Charlotte Pudding, saves them and brings them to her cafe. Pudding reveals that she is Sanji's fiancée, but she seems kind and tells the crew that Sanji still wants to return to them. She gives them a secret route to Whole Cake Island, but when they return to the Sunny, all that's left is a warning telling them to turn back. Elsewhere, Jinbei asks the Sun Pirates for permission to leave Big Mom's crew and officially join the Straw Hats. His crew supports him, but when he asks Big Mom directly, she demands that he spin a roulette wheel to pay a price for leaving. Realizing the wheel could cost him his life and endanger his crew, Jinbei withdraws his request. At the same time, Big Mom's terrifying power is shown when she falls into a hunger rampage for Crokombush, destroys part of Sweet City, and drains the lifespan from her son, Moscato, before Jinbei stops her by feeding her the desserts that she wants. Yo, this girl is a fat-ass demon. Following Pudding's route, the Sanji retrieval team reaches Whole Cake Island. Pedro and Brook split off to steal a copy of Big Mom's road poneglyph, while Luffy, Nami, Chopper, and Carrot enter the Seducing Woods. There, the forest itself is alive and hostile. They encounter fake versions of their friends, the buried giant Pound, and Charlotte Brûlée, who uses mirrors to trap Carrot and Chopper in the Miro world. Pound reveals that he was once Big Mom's husband, and that the homies are created from lifespans taken from Totoland's citizens. Nami realizes Lola was Big Mom's daughter and uses Lola's life card to make the homies obey her. Luffy then faces Sweet Commander Charlotte Cracker. At first, Cracker overwhelms him with the endless biscuit soldiers, but Nami helps by softening them with rain, allowing Luffy to eat them. After an exhausting 11-hour battle, Luffy uses Gear 4 Tankman to launch Cracker away and defeat him. This triggers a state of emergency in Toto Land. Meanwhile, Sanji reunites with his biological family, the Vinsmokes. He fights his father Judge and proves he is strong, but Judge uses soldiers as human shields and defeats him with underhanded tactics. Sanji is then forced to wear explosive cuffs that will destroy his hands if he runs. Judge also threatens Zeph in the East Blue, trapping Sanji emotionally. Sanji's brothers, Ichiji, Niiji, and Yonji, show themselves to be cruel, genetically modified soldiers with no empathy. In a flashback, we see Sanji remembers being bullied as a child, rejected by Judge for being normal, and locked in a dungeon, and eventually freed by Reiju, who helped him escape to the East Blue. Back in the battlefield, after Luffy defeats Cracker, he and Nami finally find Sanji's carriage. Luffy happily runs to him, but Sanji, trying to protect Zeph and the crew, kicks him away and pretends he has chosen his royal family over the Straw Hats. Luffy refuses to fight back, and after Sanji beats him down and leaves, Luffy declares he will wait in that spot and will not eat anything except food Sanji makes. Big Mom's forces then overwhelm Luffy and Nami and imprison them in the prisoner library. Pudding visits them and reveals her true nature. She plans to murder Sanji at the wedding, and Big Mom plans to massacre the Vinsmokes. Damn! Who else did not see this one coming? Pudding also reveals her third eye. Sanji overhears the truth when he brings food to her room and is devastated. Reiju, after being shot and having her memory altered by Pudding, learns the truth from Sanji and urges him to run, revealing that their mother Sora sacrificed herself to save Sanji. At the same time, Brook successfully infiltrates Big Mom's treasure room and copies the poneglyphs, but Big Mom catches and defeats him. Pedro creates a distraction outside and battles Tamago, revealing that he had lost much of his lifespan to Big Mom 5 years earlier. Chopper and Carrot escape the Miro World trap by defeating Brulee's group and later help rescue Brook from Big Mom's room. Brook reveals that he hid the poneglyph copies inside his skull. Jinbei then frees Luffy and Nami from the prisoner library, officially joining their side. Luffy finds Sanji at the promised spot, starving but still waiting. Sanji gives him a ruined bento, which Luffy happily eats. He claims that he can't return, but Luffy punches him and forces him to admit the truth. He wants to save his family. Luffy instantly agrees to help. Jinbei suggests an alliance with Beige, who is also plotting to assassinate Big Mom. The Straw Hats and Fire Tank Pirates meet at Beige's hideout and form a risky plan. Beige reveals that Big Mom becomes vulnerable when Mother Carmel's portrait is damaged. At the wedding, Sanji surprises Pudding by calling her third eye beautiful, causing her to emotionally break down and fail to shoot him. Katakuri tries to intervene, but the chaos begins as Luffy and his animal duplicates burst from the wedding cake. Jinbei publicly leaves Big Mom's crew, and Brook destroys Carmel's portrait, and Big Mom enters a screaming mental breakdown. Yo, honestly, I can't handle this woman. This girl's annoying as hell. Unhinged behavior with her big bone ass. During the chaos, Sanji frees the Vinsmokes, but Beige's assassination attempt fails when Big Mom's scream destroys the KX launchers. Big Mom's past is then revealed. As a child on Elbaf, Charlotte Linlin was abandoned for being uncontrollably destructive. Mother Carmel took her in, but Carmel was secretly a child trafficker selling orphans to the world government. During Linlin's 6th birthday feast, Carmel and the other children mysteriously disappeared while Linlin was eating, leaving only Struzen as a witness. Linlin inherited Carmel's dream of a world where all races lived together, but twisted it into her own monstrous vision. Back in the present, the Alliance barely escapes when the Tame Tabako bomb from Fishman Island explodes, causing Whole Cake Chateau to collapse. Struzen softens the fall by turning part of the castle into cake. Big Mom then falls into another craving, this time for the destroyed wedding cake. Pudding, Chiffon, and Sanji begin baking a replacement cake on Cacao Island to stop her rampage. Meanwhile, the Straw Hats flee through the seducing woods, but Big Mom catches up. Pedro sacrifices himself by detonating explosives to stop them and free the Sunny, allowing the crew to escape. Luffy drags Katakuri into the Miro World so his crew can get away. Luffy then battles Katakuri in a brutal duel. However, gets dominated by him with advanced observation haki, but Luffy slowly improves during the fight. When Flampe interferes and causes Luffy to be badly wounded, Katakuri stabs himself in the same spot to keep the fight fair. Well, look at this, ain't this just a nice guy? Luffy activates Gear 4, Snake Man, and the two exchange their strongest attacks, with Luffy finally defeating him as he falls on his back, acknowledging Luffy's will. Sanji then rescues Luffy from the island with the help of Germa 66. The Sunny is then cornered by Big Mom's fleet, but the Sun Pirates arrive and open an escape route. Jinbei stays behind to help his old crew, promising to reunite with Luffy and Wano. Big Mom eventually eats Sanji's cake and is satisfied, while the Straw Hats escape Toto Land. As the arc ends, Sanji learns of Pedro's sacrifice and cooks for his crew, paralleled with Zeph at Baratier feeding hungry pirates, showing that Sanji's true family and values come not from the Vinsmokes, but Zeph, the man who raised him. Levelly. After escaping Toto Land, Luffy, Sanji, Nami, Chopper, Brook, and Carrot sail toward Wano. On the Sunny, Luffy and Chopper discover the raid suit Niji secretly gave Sanji, but Sanji refuses to try it. Nami also reveals that Zeus is now inside her Climatact. Soon, the crew receives the newspaper covering their clash with Big Mom. Sanji's thrilled that his bounty finally surpasses Zoro's, but horrified that his poster uses the Vinsmoke name. Luffy thinks his bounty dropped to 150 million, only for everyone to realize he missed a zero and that his new bounty is a whopping 1.5 billion. Around the world, people react to Luffy's new reputation, and because of his actions against Big Mom and the belief that the 7 powerful crews serve under him, the world begins calling him the 5th Emperor. Shanks is pleased and feels a reunion with Luffy may be coming soon. Kaido, Big Mom, and Blackbeard elsewhere react with irritation and doubt. On Fishman Island, Neptune prepares to attend the Levelly and considers declaring Fishman Island under the Straw Hats' protection because of Jinbei's actions. Meanwhile, various royal families head toward Marie Joie for the Levelly. Kobe rescues Princess Komane from pirates and reunites with Rebecca, Kiros, King Riku, and Elizabello. When Kobe reads about Luffy's new bounty, he cries with joy. The Revolutionary Army, now based on a new island, prepares for its own move. Dragon and Sabo discuss declaring war on the world nobles during the Levelly, while the 4 revolutionary commanders, Morley, Bello, Betty, Lindbergh, and Karasu, help liberate the Lucia Kingdom from the Peachbeard pirates. At New Marine Ford, Sakazuki learns Fujitora has gone to Marie Joie and sends Ryokugyu to remove him, though he doesn't really care. Fujitora then reveals he met Vegapunk and learned of a new invention that could make the 7 Warlords system unnecessary. At the Red Port, royals gather to ascend the Red Line. Shirahoshi sees the sun for the first time, while Sabo, Karasu, and Morley secretly infiltrate Marie Joie in disguise. At the castle, while the royals socialize, Vivi, Rebecca, and Shirahoshi bond over Luffy, while Walpole insults Vivi before Dalton intervenes. Elsewhere, Doflamingo sits in Impel Down, wondering if assassins will silence him because he knows Marie Joie's hidden treasure. Elsewhere, deep within the castle, a mysterious figure approaches, a giant straw hat. Tensions rise further when Big Mom contacts Kaido about Luffy. The Marines intercept the call and worry about 2 emperors meeting, while Garp and Hina mention the lingering threat of rocks. Meanwhile, a hooded figure then meets privately with the 5 elders to discuss a certain pirate. I wonder who that could be. The Levelly then turns dark when Saint Charlos tries to enslave Shirahoshi. Leo and Sai attempt to stop him, but CP0 protects Charlos. Neptune nearly abandons Odahime's dream to save his daughter, but Don Quixote Miosgard intervenes, striking Charlos and freeing Shirahoshi. Miosgard, changed by Otahime's kindness years ago, promises to protect her. Meanwhile, Jewelry Bonnie infiltrates the domain of the gods disguised as Queen Connie and sees Bartholomew Kuma enslaved by the celestial dragons. The revolutionary commanders see this too and prepare a dangerous mission to rescue him. Finally, the Levelly begins. Cobra requests a meeting with the 5 elders while they discuss a coming great cleansing. They then enter the throne room where the mysterious emu sits upon the supposedly empty throne. The 5 elders kneel and ask which light should be erased from history. The Wano Country Saga. Wano Country aired in the One Piece anime from 2019 to 2023 in Japan and spans a total of 197 episodes. So, let's get into the story. Marco and Nekomamushi first reach Sphinx, Whitebeard's homeland, hoping Marco will join the fight against Kaido. But Marco stays behind to protect the village from Edward Weevil and Buchan, who are hunting Whitebeard's inheritance. He sends Nekomamushi ahead with a message for Luffy. Meanwhile, Luffy's group sails towards Wano, reading news from the Leveille, aka the Reverie, before entering the stormy sea. They ride giant carp up a waterfall, but a whirlpool separates Luffy and the Thousand Sunny from the others. In Wano, Kinemon's group has already infiltrated the flower capital. Frankie works as a carpenter, Usopp sells toad oil, Robin trains as a geisha, and Zoro becomes a ronin. But Zoro is framed for murders by a corrupt magistrate. During his forced seppuku, Zoro realizes the magistrate is the real killer and cuts him down with the tiny blade. Luffy washes ashore in Kuri and meets Tama, a poor girl with the power to tame animals by feeding them dango from her cheek. After Luffy saves her from beast pirate scouts, Tama feeds him her only rice. She then collapses from drinking polluted water. Her master, Tenguyama Hitetsu, explains that Kaido's factories have poisoned the land and that Tama has been waiting for Ace, who once promised to take her to sea. Luffy tells her Ace died, devastating her, but he sets out to find her a doctor. On the way, Luffy reunites with Zoro, and the two clash with Basil Hawkins. After this, they later meet Tsuru, who cures Tama in Okobore town, where the poor survive on leftovers from the wealthy Bakura town. When Tama is kidnapped by Gazelman and taken to Hold'em, Luffy, Zoro, and Kiku storm Bakura town. Luffy defeats the Yokozuna, Urashima, in a sumo match, then punches Hold'em with Red Hawk after seeing Tama hurt. He also steals a cart of clean food and water from the Paradise Farm and delivers it to Okobore town, promising Tama that before he leaves Wano, she will eat as much as she wants every day. Law then brings Luffy to the ruins of Oden Castle, where Luffy sees graves for Kinemon, Kanjuro, Raizo, and Momonosuke. Kinemon reveals the truth. They are not ghosts, but travelers from 20 years ago. He explains that Kozuki Oden once ruled Kuri, sailed with Whitebeard and Roger, learned the secrets of the world, and wanted to open Wano's borders. But Kaido and Orochi killed him, burned Oden Castle, and forced Toki to send Momonosuke, Kinemon, Kanjuro, Raizo, and Kiku 20 years into the future. Their goal is to raid Kaido's island, Onigashima, during the Fire Festival in 2 weeks. Kaido suddenly appears over Kuri in dragon form. Hawkins, trying to redirect Kaido away from the town, accidentally sends him toward Oden Castle. Kaido destroys the ruins with a blast of fire, and Luffy, believing his crew may have been killed, attacks him in rage. Luffy hits Kaido with everything he has, but Kaido barely feels it and knocks him out with one swing of his club. Luffy is thrown into Udon Prison, where he meets Kid, and the two immediately begin competing while swearing revenge. Elsewhere, Gecko Moria invades Blackbeard's island looking for Absalom, only to learn Absalom was killed and his invisibility fruit stolen by Shiru. Blackbeard invites Moria to join him while revealing major world news. The revolutionary commanders clash with admirals at the Leveille, aka the Reverie, depending on how you want to say this, man, like, bruh. And Luffy has arrived in Wano. In Wano's second act, the flower capital grows tense. Robin infiltrates Orochi's banquet, where Orochi rants about Toki's prophecy, and the Kozuki clan's return. When Toko laughs at him, Orochi tries to kill her, but Komurasaki slaps him. Kiyoshiro appears to cut Komurasaki down, secretly saving her by faking her death, while Nami drops Zeus lightning on Orochi during the chaos. Sanji is later hunted by Page One and uses the raid suit for the first time, becoming invisible as Stealth Black. Zoro, meanwhile, meets Tonoyasu in Ibisu town, whose people laugh constantly despite starvation. Zoro then chases Yukimaru, who stole Shusui and ends up saving Komurasaki and Toko from Kamazo. After defeating Kamazo, Zoro learns Komurasaki is actually Hiyori, Momonosuke's sister, who stayed behind in the past and survived under Denjiro's protection. The Alliance suffers a setback when Orochi discovers the secret crescent moon symbol and has Kozuki's supporters rounded up. Toniyasu, revealed as Shimotsuki Yasui, sacrifices himself publicly. He claims the secret message was only a prank, making Orochi look paranoid and secretly changing the Alliance's meeting place. Orochi executes him and the people of Ebisu Town laugh uncontrollably. Hiyori reveals the horrifying truth. Orochi fed failed smile fruits to starving townspeople, robbing them of every emotion except laughter. When Orochi tries to shoot Toko, Zoro and Sanji arrive to save her. In Udon, Luffy trains under Hyogoro, learning the Wano form of armament hockey called Ryu. Big Mom, who lost her memory after falling into Wano's waters, is brought to Udon by Chopper, Tama, Kiku, and Momonosuke because she wants Oshiruko. She destroys Queen, causes chaos, and pushes Luffy to unlock a deeper level of hockey by removing explosive collars. Queen eventually knocks Big Mom back into her memories and takes her to Onigashima. Luffy uses the chaos to liberate Udon, winning the prisoners over after Queen's virus weapon backfires. Kawamatsu is freed, Hyogoro rallies the old Yakuza bosses, and Udon becomes an Alliance stronghold. The final preparations come together. Ashura Doji rejoins after showing Kinemon the graves of samurai who died waiting. Kawamatsu reveals a hidden stockpile of weapons gathered with Onimaru. Hiyori gives Zoro Oden's sword, Enma, in exchange for returning Shusui to Wano. Eventually, their alliance reaches 4,200 fighters. Elsewhere, Kaido and Big Mom form their own pirate alliance, sending shockwaves throughout the world. News of the Reverie also changes everything. The Seven Warlords system is abolished, Marine forces move against Mihawk, Hancock, Buggy, and Weevil, and Sengoku explains the history of the Rock's pirates, the old crew that included Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard. Meanwhile, Wano becomes even more important because of Oden's connection to Roger, Whitebeard, and the secrets of the world. On the day of the raid, the Scabbards arrive at Tokage Port and find everything ruined. The Alliance appears gone. Then, Kanjuro reveals he is Orochi's spy and a member of the Kurozumi clan. He kidnaps Momonosuke and tries to crush the Scabbard's hope, but Luffy, Law, and Kid arrive at sea with their crews, and Denjiro reveals himself as Kiyoshiro, bringing the freed Resetsu prisoners and the Hidden Alliance forces. Jinbei also returns, officially joining the Straw Hats just in time for the raid. The Alliance lands on Onigashima, disguised as beast pirates. While Kaido and Orochi celebrate the Fire Festival, Luffy and Zoro blow their cover after seeing beast pirates waste food and mock Okabore town. Kid attacks Appu for betraying him, and chaos erupts. The Scabbards infiltrate from the rear, Kanjuro delivers Momonosuke to Orochi, and Kaido announces the new Onigashima project. He will turn Wano into a lawless pirate nation and make Yamato shogun. When Orochi objects, Kaido beheads him and absorbs his forces. Luffy meets Yamato, Kaido's child, who idolizes Oden and wants to fight for Wano. Yamato reveals he met Ace years ago and has been waiting for Luffy. As Kaido prepares to execute Momonosuke, the Scabbards launch their ambush and wound him, officially starting the raid. Kaido takes dragon form and flies to the rooftop with the Scabbards clinging to him. Under the full moon, the Minks unleash Sulong and fight Jack's army. Inside the Skull Dome, the Straw Hats gather. Sanji saves Momonosuke from King. Frankie and Brook crash into Big Mom. Jinbei and Robin toss Big Mom away, and Luffy declares total war. Drake, exposed as a Marine spy, joins Luffy's side. Queen then releases the Ice Oni virus on the live floor, while Tama begins turning gifters to the Alliance's side using her Dango. Robin then saves Sanji from Black Maria, trusting his faith in her, and later defeats Black Maria with Brook's help. Chopper then cures the Ice Oni virus and wins over Queen's own subordinates by proving Queen treats them as disposable. On the rooftop, Luffy, Zoro, Law, Kid, and Killer face Kaido and Big Mom. Luffy hurts Kaido with Red Rock, proving his new hockey works. The worst generation fights desperately, but the two emperors are overwhelming. Zoro briefly blocks their combined attack, suffering massive injuries, then later scars Kaido with Ashura. Luffy realizes Conqueror's Haki can be infused into attacks and briefly fights Kaido one-on-one, but he is defeated and knocked into the sea. The battle continues below, as Big Mom turns on page 1 after learning Okabore town was burned, while Nami and Usopp protect Tama. Zeus, abandoned by Big Mom, ends up living inside Nami's climate tact and helps her defeat Ulti. Momonosuke broadcasts Luffy's message that he is still alive and will return, restoring the Alliance's morale. Sanji then takes over against Queen, and Zoro is revived by mink medicine so he can fight King. The Straw Hats and their allies begin defeating their enemies, and Jinbei defeats Who's Who reveals he was imprisoned by the world government after losing the Gomu Gomu no Mi to Shanks. Frankie defeats Sasaki, and Robin defeats Black Maria, while Killer defeats Hawkins by exploiting the fact that Kid has no left arm. Sanji, fearing his Vinsmoke modifications are awakening and might erase his emotions, destroys the raid suit, then accepts his new body and defeats Queen with Ifrit Jambe. Zoro learns King is a Lunarian and figures out his flame-based defense. By unleashing his own Conqueror's Haki through Enma, he defeats King. Meanwhile, Law and Kid fight Big Mom. Using their Awakened Devil Fruit abilities, they push her beyond her limits. Big Mom empowers herself with her own lifespan, but Law silences her with Our Room, and Kid blasts her with Damned Punk, sending her through Onigashima and into a massive underground pit. Big Mom falls into the earth, swearing revenge, and an explosion follows. For the first time, an emperor has finally fallen. Kaido then defeats Luffy again after CP0 interferes, recreating the kind of outside sabotage that once ruined Kaido's fight with Oden. Luffy's heart stops and Kaido declares him dead. The Alliance then begins to despair, but Zunisha tells Momonosuke it hears the drums of liberation. Joy Boy has returned. The five elders reveal that Luffy's fruit is not the Gum Gum fruit, but the mythical Zoan Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, whose awakening gives the user absurd freedom in battle, bringing their imagination and dreams to reality. With this, Luffy awakens in Gear 5. In Gear 5, Luffy fights like a living cartoon, grabbing Kaido, bouncing attacks back, turning giant, and laughing through the battle. Kaido recognizes the power as an awakening, but continues fighting seriously, insisting Haki is what truly conquers the seas. Inside the castle, fire spread everywhere, but Raizo uses water stored from Zunisha's eruption rain, and Jinbei spreads it through the castle to save everyone. Orochi, trapped with Hiyori, tries to kill her, but Denjiro returns and finally beheads him. For the final battle, Luffy creates an island-sized fist, and Kaido wraps himself in a massive flaming dragon form, confident Luffy will melt before touching him. But Luffy uses advanced Haki to avoid direct contact. When Kaido asks what kind of world Luffy wants, Luffy answers a world where his friends can eat as much as they want. Luffy overpowers Kaido and punches him deep into the earth, while Momonosuke finally creates flame clouds to move Onigashima away from the flower capital and land it safely. With Kaido defeated, Nekomamushi announces victory. Momonosuke appears before the people of Wano with Hiyori and the Scabbards. At first, the citizens fear he is Kaido, but he transforms into his adult human form and declares that Kaido and Orochi are gone. He promises to abolish the factories, restore the land, and rule as Wano's new shogun. Tama remembers her parents, the hunger she endured, and Luffy's promise, then breaks down crying in Nami's arms. A week later, Wano begins healing. Luffy and Zoro finally wake up, demanding meat and booze, and the country celebrates with a massive banquet. Robin discovers that Tenguyama Hitetsu is actually Kozuki Sukiyaki, Oden's father, who reveals Wano's road poneglyph and the hidden ancient weapon Pluton beneath the country. He also explains that opening Wano's borders would release Pluton, but Momonosuke decides the country is not ready yet. Caribou overhears this and plans to expose this later on. Ryokugyu arrives in Wano, hoping to capture Luffy and impress Sakazuki. He attacks the recovering Scabbards and drains Raizo and Shinobu, but Momonosuke refuses help from Luffy's group. wanting to prove Wano can defend itself. In desperation, he unleashes his first Bolo breath. Ryokugyu prepares to continue, but Shanks, waiting offshore with the red-haired pirates, blasts him with Conqueror's Haki. Ryokugyu retreats and Shanks decides not to meet Luffy yet, instead declaring it is finally time to go after the One Piece. Yamato chooses to stay in Wano for now, wanting to help protect it and explore the country before sailing. Marco then says his goodbye to Luffy and tells him Ace would be proud. Carrot is then chosen to become the new ruler of Zou, while Sukiyaki reveals himself to Momonosuke and Hiyori, but chooses to keep living as Tengu Yama. Finally, the Straw Hats, Heart Pirates, and Kid Pirates all prepare to leave. Law declares their alliance over, and the three crews become rivals again. Kid reveals the Cross Guild, led publicly by Buggy with Crocodile and Mihawk involved, and mentions the mysterious Man with the Burn Scar. Momonosuke and Kinemon, angry that Luffy left without saying goodbye, chase him to the port. Momonosuke breaks down, begging Luffy not to go, but Luffy gives him a Straw Hat flag and tells him to fly it over Wano if enemies come, because Wano is now under his crew's protection. He also tells Momonosuke, Kinemon, and Yamato that they can sail with him whenever they're ready. The three pirate crews then depart Wano, each heading toward the next stage of the race for the One Piece. Final Saga, Egghead Arc. Now, technically the Final Saga is bigger than just Egghead, but since Egghead is the only complete arc from this saga in the anime at the moment, that is what we're going to focus on. The Egghead Arc aired in the One Piece anime from 2023 to 2025 for a total of 70 episodes. Let's dive into Egghead Arc. After leaving Wano, the Straw Hats survive the dangerous fall down the waterfall, and Nami punishes Luffy by locking him in a cage. The crew then reads the newspaper and learns about the huge events that happened while they were isolated. Cobra has been killed, Vivi is missing, Sabo is accused of murder, and their new bounties are out. Luffy immediately wants to rescue Vivi, but Zoro tells him not to rush in without knowing the situation. Luffy refuses to believe Sabo killed Cobra, then accidentally reveals his true dream to the crew. Everyone reacts with shock, laughter, and disbelief, while Frankie says they need the Last Road poneglyph to make Luffy Pirate King and help him achieve it. Elsewhere, Marco returns to Sphinx and remembers saying goodbye to Luffy, Jinbei, and the others in Wano. Yamato had chosen not to join the Straw Hats yet because Wano still needed protection, and meanwhile, on Karaibari Island, Crocodile and Mihawk confront Buggy for being mistakenly advertised as Cross Guild's leader. In reality, Crocodile and Mihawk created Cross Guild, but Buggy's followers placed him front and center on the poster. The world government misunderstood and declared Buggy one of the four emperors. Crocodile is furious, but Mihawk suggests using Buggy as a convenient figurehead. Back on Amazon Lily, the Marines attack with new Seraphim pacifistas, including childlike weapons resembling Hancock and Mihawk. Blackbeard also arrives to steal Hancock's devil fruit. Hancock petrifies most of the Marines and pirates, but Blackbeard grabs her and nullifies her power. The standoff ends when Rayleigh arrives and forces Blackbeard to leave. However, Kobe is kidnapped by the Blackbeard pirates. At Kamabaka Kingdom, the Revolutionary Army learns Sabo is still alive. Sabo calls Dragon and Ivankov, saying he didn't kill Cobra and that he saw something impossible. Someone sitting on the empty throne, which would mean that there is someone who is the true ruler of this world pulling all the strings. The Marines trace the call to Lulusia Kingdom, and Sabo begins explaining Imu orders a mysterious weapon to erase Lulusia. Beams then fall from the sky, destroying the kingdom completely, and the world government declares that Lulusia never existed. A few days later, the Straw Hats approach Egghead, an island said to be 500 years in the future. They rescue Jewelry Bonnie from a giant warm eddy, but a mechanical shark attacks the Sunny. Jinbei saves Luffy, Chopper, and Bonnie, while the rest of the crew is rescued by a giant mecha piloted by Lilith, one of Dr. Vegapunk's satellite bodies. Luffy's group then explores Egghead and finds holograms, futuristic clothes, climate controls, and an automatic food machine. They meet Atlas, another Vegapunk, but when a police pacifista attacks them, Bonnie stops Luffy from fighting and reveals that Kuma is her father. Meanwhile, CP0 heads to Egghead with Lucci, Kaku, Stussy, and S-Bear. Their mission is to return the Seraphim and assassinate all Vegapunks. In the Labo phase, the other Straw Hats fight S-Shark, a Seraphim modeled after Jinbei. Shaka stops the battle and reveals that Egghead's technology is actually based on an ancient kingdom from 900 years ago. He explains that the Void Century was likely a war between that kingdom and the 20 nations that became the world government. Robin realizes this connects to Ohara, her birthplace that was destroyed by the world government. Shaka also reveals that Ohara's books survived and were taken to Elbaf by giants, suggesting Jaguar D. Saul may still be alive, the giant who protected Robin during the crisis of Ohara, bringing Robin to tears. Luffy's group then meets the real Vegapunk, the Stella. Vegapunk explains that his brain grew endlessly because of the Nomi Nomi no Mi, so he separated it into punk records and created 6 satellite bodies. Bonnie then attacks him, demanding he restore Kuma, but Vegapunk insists he cannot. He also shows them the ancient Iron Giant, a robot from 900 years ago that once attacked Mary Joie 200 years ago before suddenly stopping. Vegapunk then asks Luffy to take him off Egghead because the world government wants him dead. CP0 infiltrates Egghead, and Lucci badly injures Atlas, enraging Luffy. Luffy and Lucci clash, both using awakened forms, but Luffy overwhelms him in Gear 5. Vegapunk then explains that old records do not mention the Gomu Gomu no Mi and connects Luffy's power to the sun god Nika. Afterward, Sentomaru sides with Vegapunk, but Lucci wounds him and gains control of the Seraphim. Luffy then defeats Lucci for the moment and escapes to the Labo phase with Bonnie. Bonnie finds Kuma's memory bubble in room Nikyu and enters it, witnessing Kuma's tragic childhood. Kuma was born in Sorbet Kingdom as part of the nearly extinct Buccaneer race and enslaved by the world nobles as a child. His father taught him about Nika before being killed. Kuma later survived the God Valley human hunting tournament, where he met Ivankov and Ginny. During the chaos involving the Rocks Pirates, Roger Pirates, Marines, and Celestial Dragons, Kuma ate the pawpaw fruit and saved hundreds of people. Kuma, Ginny, and Ivankov escaped to Sorbet. Kuma became a gentle pastor who absorbed people's pain every week. He loved Ginny, but refused to marry her because his Buccaneer blood could endanger her. After the corrupt king, Bakori, oppressed Sorbet's poor, Kuma and Ginny joined Dragon's revolutionary army. Ginny was later kidnapped and forced to marry a celestial dragon. Years later, she returned, dying from sapphire scales, left behind her daughter, Bonnie. Kuma raised Bonnie as his own, but she inherited the same disease. When doctors said she would die by age 10, Kuma searched desperately for a cure. Kuma eventually brought Bonnie to Vegapunk, who could save her. Vegapunk agreed, but Saturn imposed cruel conditions. Kuma had to become a warlord, become the model for the Pacifista project, and surrender his free will. Kuma accepted because it would save Bonnie. After her treatment, Bonnie was held hostage in Sorbet by Cypher Pole, while Kuma's letters to her were intercepted. Bonnie eventually escaped using her age powers. Kuma then continued serving the government while secretly helping people. He spared the Straw Hats at Thriller Bark, separated them at Sabaody because he believed Luffy could save the world, and asked Vegapunk to program him to protect the Sunny until a Straw Hat returned. Before losing his personality, Kuma left Bonnie one final birthday message. In the present, Bonnie, understanding everything, forgives Vegapunk, realizing Saturn is the true source of her family's suffering. Meanwhile, York is revealed as the traitor among the Vegapunks. She wants to become a celestial dragon and secretly gave the world government the Mother Flame. The world government surrounds Egghead with a massive fleet led by Kizaru and Saint J. Garcia Saturn. Kizaru defeats Sentomaru, takes command of the Pacifistas, and enters the Labo phase. Lucci then betrays the group and tries to kill Vegapunk, but Stussy takes the blow. Zoro fights Lucci, while Luffy fights Kizaru. Kizaru then destroys the Vega Force 01 and kicks Bonnie into the barrier, but Luffy enters Gear 5 and grabs him. The Iron Giant begins awakening in response to Luffy's heartbeat. Saturn then arrives in a monstrous spider-like form and immobilizes everyone with a mysterious power. Bonnie stabs him in rage, but he regenerates instantly. Saturn reveals that Kuma was a Buccaneer and prepares to execute Bonnie. Just before she's killed, Kuma arrives on Egghead and protects her. He punches Saturn with his remaining strength, sending him flying. Saturn then regenerates and orders a buster call, deciding Egghead must be erased because it contains Void Century research, a Buccaneer survivor, and Nika. As Egghead burns, Vegapunk reveals he secretly programmed all Kuma-based pacifistas to obey Bonnie above the 5 elders. Bonnie commands them to stop, and the pacifistas turn on the Marines. Saturn impales Vegapunk for his betrayal, and Kizaru wounds him further. Luffy then returns in Gear 5 and saves the fallen group. Vegapunk tells Bonnie that Luffy is Nika, the figure Kuma believed in. Then the giant warrior pirates arrive, led by Dory and Broggy, to rescue Luffy, the Sun God. Vegapunk's death triggers a broadcast which begins reaching the entire world. He announces that the world will sink into the ocean and explains that the Void Century was a war by the ancient figure Joy Boy's advanced kingdom and the 20 kingdoms that eventually led to the formation of the world government, and that the ancient weapons caused the seas to rise by 200 meters. He also admits the stolen Mother Flame was likely used to destroy Leloucia. The 5 elders descend onto Egghead in monstrous forms to stop the broadcast. They try to destroy the source, but Vegapunk reveals enough for the world to understand that Joy Boy was the first pirate. The ancient war had never truly ended, and the fate of the world depends on whoever finds the One Piece. During the escape, Bonnie uses her power to become a Nika-like figure and fights beside Luffy. Atlas sacrifices herself to keep Nuzjuro from stopping the Sunny, and finally, Emmett, the Iron Giant, protects Luffy and releases a knot of Joy Boy's Conqueror's Haki. The blast knocks out Marines and forces the Elders back to Mary Joie. The Straw Hats and the Giants escape Egghead, and afterward it is revealed that Vegapunk, Shaka, and Pythagoras discovered York's betrayal, recorded the broadcast, hid it inside Emmett, and erased their own memories so York wouldn't even know. Afterward, Lilith wakes up aboard the giant ship and tells Luffy that the Vegapunks still live through her, easing his guilt over failing to save Stella. Elsewhere, Saturn is punished by Emu for letting Luffy escape, and Garling replaces him as one of the 5 elders. As the Revolutionary Army processes Vegapunk's message, they realize the world may soon fight over habitable land. The Straw Hats now sail toward Elbaf with Bonnie, Lilith, and the Giants, while the world enters a terrifying new era. And that is part 1 of the Final Saga, the Egghead Arc. After Elbaf concludes, then part 2 will come out. But in the meantime, if you haven't already watched the other sagas, then click one of these videos right here. Don't forget to join the membership. It means a lot to me. Thank y'all for supporting the channel. We're at 35,000 subs. Goal is to get to 50K by the end of this year. And use Conqueror's Haki on the subscribe button, Observation Haki on the bell icon so you never miss another update. And until next time, deuces.